I was still sitting cross-legged on the floor when she screamed. Morgan held up the BMW keys like she'd just won the lottery. Our parents laughed, clapped, even cried a little. I hadn't opened my gift yet, but in that moment I already knew. This Christmas wasn't for me. It never was. The living room was wrapped in the artificial scent of pine and cinnamon, soft carols playing from a Bluetooth speaker on the fireplace mantel. Wrapping paper littered the floor like fallen leaves after a storm. The lights on the tree blinked gently, twinkling like they were part of a better story. Morgan twirled in her Lululemon leggings, squealing as she held up the car keys like a trophy. "My first BMW," she screamed, before bolting out the front door in slippers to see it in the driveway. White, glossy, huge red bow on the hood, like a Hallmark movie come to life. My mother followed her out with a mug of coffee and her phone ready for Instagram stories. My father watched from the window, his chest puffed up with what I once would have called pride. Now I'm not so sure. I was still on the floor, cross-legged, one unopened box left in front of me. I already knew it wasn't a car, or anything close, but I opened it anyway, because that's what you do. You keep playing the role, even when the script turns against you. Inside was a piggy bank, bright blue plastic shaped like a cartoon octopus, something clearly meant for a child. There was still a clearance sticker on the bottom, $1.99. "Open it," my mom chirped, like she hadn't just handed her older daughter a toddler's toy at 34 years old. "There's something inside." I turned it over, popped the rubber stopper. 2 crisp $1 bills slid into my palm. "That's the start of your home savings fund," my dad said with a chuckle. "You're always the smart one, Avery." So responsible with money, not like some people. He winked at Morgan, who had just walked back in, cheeks flushed from the cold. She laughed like it was a compliment. I didn't laugh. "My name is Avery Langdon. I'm 34 years old, a senior structural engineer based in Seattle. I build things that don't fall apart, which is ironic because my family does the exact opposite." Morgan flopped onto the couch next to me, wafting perfume that smelled like confidence and entitlement. "Don't worry, sis," she said, patting my knee like I was the family pet. "I'll drive you around if your Toyota dies on you." The Toyota she was mocking. I'd driven it across 7 hours of snow-covered mountain passes the day before. I paid it off 3 years ago. It's taken me from college to job sites to midnight grocery runs. It's not beautiful, but it never let me down. Unlike the people in this room. Just that morning, I had laid out their gifts with careful precision. A leather briefcase for my dad, one I couldn't afford when I was in college but saved for this year. A silver bracelet for my mom, the one she stared at through the boutique window last summer. And for Morgan, a professional-grade camera lens she mentioned in passing. The kind that makes influencers look like Vogue editors. I bought them all, one paycheck at a time, carefully, quietly, hoping this year would be different, hoping they'd finally see me. I didn't even want a car, I just wanted to feel like I mattered. I stared at the octopus piggy bank in my hands. It felt weightless, like the sum total of my value to these people. $2 to represent 3 decades of being the easy child, the independent one, the one who didn't ask for much because she learned early that asking came with shame. And still, I'd driven home, wrapped gifts, told myself this year would be different. But it wasn't. Something inside me, quiet and deep, began to harden. Not out of hate, not even out of sadness, It was the kind of emotion that takes years to ferment. Resignation, followed by clarity. Because in that moment, I finally understood. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was the pattern. And I had just unwrapped proof that nothing I ever did would change that. But before I left that house forever, before I packed my things and vanished at 2:17 a.m., I needed to face one more truth, one I had spent a lifetime trying not to see. This Christmas wasn't the betrayal, it was just the final receipt in a file that had been growing since childhood. I didn't speak for the rest of Christmas morning, not during brunch, not while Morgan took selfies with the car, not even when my mom asked if I liked the piggy bank. I just smiled the kind of smile that women learn to wear when silence is safer than honesty. The truth is, this wasn't new, it was just more obvious this time. I'd spent my whole life watching Morgan get the spotlight while I dimmed myself to make space. The BMW was just louder than usual. As they passed around mimosas and took group photos, my mind started dragging me backward, flashing moments across my memory, like flipping through a photo album I never asked to open. Morgan's 5th birthday, a princess party with ponies and 30 kids in matching tiaras. Mine the next year, grocery store cake, and 2 friends from school. Morgan needs the social interaction, Dad had said. You're more independent, sweetie. I was 6. How independent do they think I was? High school graduation. I gave the valedictorian speech to a half-empty gym. My parents weren't there. They were at Morgan's junior varsity soccer game. We'll watch the recording, Mom promised. They never did. College was a bigger divide. I held down 2 campus jobs while carrying a full course load, graduating a year early with honors. Morgan, meanwhile, spent a gap year traveling Europe to find herself, fully funded by our parents, of course. When I called to ask for help covering rent once, Dad said, "You're a survivor, Avery. You'll figure it out," I did. But I never asked again. I remember one Thanksgiving when Morgan showed up with a new designer bag and cried because the stuffing was too dry. My mom made a fresh batch just for her. I had a fever that year, no one noticed. But this time, this Christmas, there was no hiding behind justifications or excuses. They didn't forget me. They saw me and still chose her. That's what broke something open inside me. Just that morning, I had spent 6 hours in traffic, crossing icy mountain passes to get home. I had their gifts carefully wrapped in my trunk. Real gifts, thoughtful ones. I'd spent weeks budgeting, squeezing them in between rent and groceries and deadlines. And I had news, big news. 2 weeks ago, I was promoted to senior structural engineer. The kind of promotion that takes years to earn. I imagined their faces lighting up, maybe even a hug. I had rehearsed the words over and over again during the drive, whispering them like a spell to keep me brave. I got the promotion, senior engineer, I did it, but sitting there with $2 in my lap and a 32-year-old woman bouncing over a brand new BMW, it became crystal clear. They weren't ever going to see me, not really, not unless I failed. And even then, they'd find a way to compare it to Morgan's success, so I didn't tell them. They still don't know. Instead, I sat on that couch and listened to Morgan talk about road trips she wanted to take, Palm Springs, maybe Napa. My dad nodded like she was reading aloud from the book of Revelation. My mom wiped away tears. "You deserve it, sweetheart," she whispered. Meanwhile, I tried to breathe through the tightness in my chest, hoping the wave of nausea would pass. The piggy bank sat like an insult on the coffee table, cheap plastic and hollow inside, just like their excuses. I stayed long enough to finish the casserole I had brought. No one thanked me for it. They thought it came from the store. Later that evening, after the dishes were done and everyone had settled into their food comas, I stood alone in the hallway, staring at our family photos lining the wall. Frame after frame of Morgan, ballet recitals, family vacations, her art show in LA. I counted 3 with me in them. I was there, just not centered. And suddenly I knew there would never be enough promotions, gifts, or good behavior to earn what I had been denied my entire life. Not love, not really, just equity, just space, just the right to be seen. But before I could leave, I needed to break. And breaking in this house had always been a private thing, a secret act hidden behind a locked door and a fake smile. I excused myself quietly, slipping up the staircase like a ghost. My footsteps barely made a sound against the familiar hardwood floor. The hallway smelled the same, lemon polish and old family air. At the top of the stairs, I passed the same gallery of family photos, each one a silent reminder of who this house really celebrated. Morgan in a tutu, Morgan at graduation, Morgan in Paris. I was there sometimes, tucked into the corners of the frames, always smiling, always shrinking. The bathroom door clicked shut behind me. I locked it automatically. The silence hit me like a wave. No laughter, no passive-aggressive remarks, no clinking glasses or fake praise. Just me and the mirror. I didn't cry. My reflection stared back with eyes too dry, face too calm, like it hadn't just been split open by a $2 insult. I leaned against the counter, palms pressed flat against cold marble. My chest tightened, not like anxiety, worse, like someone had placed a brick on my sternum and then sat on it. Blood still moved through my veins, but slower, heavier. Each breath felt like a labor. This wasn't sadness, this was heartbreak, clinical, physical, a collapse in real time. People talk about betrayal like it's abstract, but when it hits you, it's tactile. It's not a metaphor, it's your lungs refusing to expand. It's the taste of metal on your tongue. It's your heart compressing like a vice. I stayed there, unmoving for what felt like an hour, waiting for the tears to come. They didn't. Instead, images flickered behind my eyelids. Morgan opening the box, my dad's proud grin, the piggy bank. And beneath those images, something else surfaced. Older scenes, ones I hadn't let myself think about in years. The Halloween I had to wear the same costume 2 years in a row, while Morgan got something custom made. The time I sprained my ankle before a science fair and asked for help getting supplies. Dad told me to tough it out. Morgan once sneezed on picture day and got to stay home with hot cocoa and a new headband. Those moments were so easy to brush off at the time. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need the extra attention, that I was strong. But strength without care is isolation, and I'd been isolated for a very long time. I didn't cry in that bathroom, but I did decide. In the calm, sterile silence, I felt something shift, something solidify. This wasn't a family misunderstanding. This wasn't something therapy or a heartfelt talk could fix. This was systemic, rehearsed, baked into the bones of this house, and I wasn't going to stay here and rot in it anymore. I walked out of that bathroom like nothing had changed, but inside everything had. They didn't know it yet, but I was already gone. I waited until the house had fallen completely still. Until Morgan's laughter faded through the vents and my parents' bedroom door clicked shut. I watched the digital clock on my childhood nightstand shift minute by minute, every red number a pulse in the darkness. 1:34, 1:52, 2:10. At 2:17 a.m., I sat up, swung my legs over the edge of the bed, and exhaled, quietly, deliberately, like I was about to steal something, except what I was taking was my own freedom. I packed with mechanical focus. Not everything, just what mattered. The worn teddy bear my grandmother gave me the year before she died. The photo album from college with real smiles and real friends. A small wooden box containing my first drafted blueprint from my first real project. The one that made me believe I could build things that lasted. I left the gifts I'd brought for them neatly stacked beneath the tree. Not because they deserved them, but because I refused to let them shrink me into someone who takes things back out of spite. Those gifts were a better reflection of me than they ever were of them. Let them wonder why I left them behind. Let them miss the weight of my presence when they opened them. I stood in the kitchen for a long moment, staring at the house key in my palm. It was cold, sharp-edged, familiar. I laid it beside the coffee maker, the same one my dad sets every night for a 5:45 brew, and walked out without looking back. No dramatic note, no confrontation, just silence. They made their choice. Now I was making mine. Outside, the snow had started again, dusting the world in quiet white. My car, the old Toyota they loved to mock, groaned awake as I turned the key. It didn't complain, it never had, it just did what it always did, carried me where I needed to go when no one else would. As I pulled away from the curb, I glanced at the rearview mirror. The house looked peaceful, innocent, like it hadn't just broken something sacred, like it hadn't reminded me, again, that I was easy to overlook. The roads were slick, but empty, streetlights blurred into halos through the snow. I turned off the radio. Even the silence felt cleaner outside that house. Around 3:42 a.m., I crossed the southern edge of Portland. Somewhere near Salem, my phone buzzed against the center console. It was my mom's face on the screen, no text asking if I was okay. No, please come home. Just a simple message. Did you remember to pay the electric bill for the cabin before you left? The cabin. The one they bought for family weekends, but that Morgan uses for her Instagram shoots. The one I'm expected to maintain while living 2 states away. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove. For the first time in years, without a timeline, a plan, or a destination that required me to prove my worth. The snow fell heavier now, blanketing the road and my thoughts. This wasn't escape. It was something else entirely. I didn't know where I was going when I left, but someone else did, someone who saw me, who always had. And when her name lit up my phone, I knew exactly where I needed to be. The call came just after sunrise. I had been driving for hours, somewhere between Grants Pass and the California border, when her name lit up my screen. Emma Vasquez, my college roommate, my oldest friend, the one who had seen the cracks in my family before I even knew they were there. I answered on Bluetooth, my voice hoarse from the cold and the silence. "Hey, Avery." Her voice was sharp with worry. "Where are you?" I hesitated. "Somewhere in southern Oregon. Heading south." "To where?" I didn't have an answer. There was a pause. Then her voice softened. "Come to San Francisco. Stay with me as long as you need, no questions." I gripped the wheel tighter. My throat tightened. "I don't want to impose." "Avery." Her tone changed. "You've spent your entire life helping everyone else. Let someone help you for once. Help." That word cracked something open in me. Not pity, not charity, just help. Honest, reciprocal care. Something I didn't even realize I was starving for. By the time I crossed the California state line, I had already accepted her offer. Emma texted me her address and kept checking in every hour until I arrived. Her apartment was small but sunlit, tucked into a quiet neighborhood in the Mission District. She'd cleared out her guest room and filled the fridge with all the things I used to eat when we were broke college students: instant ramen, trail mix, those weirdly addictive rice snacks. She didn't ask what happened. She just hugged me hard and said, "You're safe here." That first night, I slept for 11 hours straight. No texts from my parents, no guilt, no expectations, just the sound of rain on the window and the weight of Emma's spare quilt. The next day, I opened my laptop and drafted an email I'd rewritten a dozen times in my head. A formal request to transfer from my Seattle office to the San Francisco branch. I didn't name a reason. I didn't owe them one. My track record spoke for itself. 3 hours later, I received the approval. That night, Emma came home with 2 wine glasses and a bottle of something fancy from a local shop. "To new starts," she said, clinking her glass against mine. I found a tiny studio apartment not far from her place, a walk-up with creaky floors, cracked tile, and west-facing windows that glowed gold in the afternoons. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I bought a futon, a lamp, and a desk. That's all. The emptiness felt intentional, like I was creating space for a life I hadn't started living yet. Emma dragged me to a pottery class the following weekend. "You need something that's not work or therapy," she insisted. I didn't argue. My therapist, Dr. Levine, had said something similar. "Find something that's yours. Just yours." At the studio, the instructor handed me a slab of clay and said, "Don't force it. Let it tell you what it wants to be." I thought it was ridiculous until my fingers started moving. Until the clay started taking shape. By the end of class, I had a lopsided bowl that looked like it had been made by a 5-year-old. But it was mine. Uneven, imperfect, honest. Week by week, I built a rhythm. Therapy on Tuesdays, pottery on Saturdays, Emma's cooking on Sundays. Long walks by the water on nights when the silence felt too loud. Slowly, I stopped checking my phone for missed calls. Stopped wondering if they missed me. Stopped rehearsing conversations they weren't interested in having. My new job started quietly. A desk near a window, a boss who valued my precision, coworkers who asked questions and listened to the answers. No one there knew I was the forgotten daughter of a well-dressed family in Portland. They just saw the work. And the woman behind it. And for the first time in years, that was enough. But healing isn't linear, and peace isn't permanent. When the wedding invitation arrived, ivory envelope, familiar calligraphy, I realized the past wasn't done with me yet. And this time, I wasn't going to run. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a threat disguised as elegance. Ivory cardstock, gold trim, swooping calligraphy. Vanessa's wedding, my cousin, the one who always included me in childhood games, even when Morgan didn't. I stared at the name written across the front. Avery Langdon. No +1, no note. Just a silent assumption, you'll come alone, as usual. I waited 3 days before opening it. When I finally did, a seating chart fluttered out with the invitation. My name was placed right between my parents, across from Morgan. A neat little family restoration fantasy. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't left Christmas night with $2 in a plastic octopus. I brought the chart to therapy. "They want to pretend it never happened," I told Dr. Levine. They want me to smile and nod and pose for family photos. She nodded, folding her hands. And what do you want? I want them to know I remember. What if they already know and they're hoping you don't? I didn't respond, but I started planning. I booked my own room, Hilton, 4 blocks from the venue. I didn't return any of Dad's calls. I ignored Morgan's texts about sister time before the big weekend. I didn't respond to Aunt Judith's email about forgiveness. Instead, I packed carefully. A deep blue silk dress tailored to perfection, diamond studs Emma gave me for my birthday, and a small leather-bound photo album I hadn't shown anyone. Not yet. The rehearsal dinner was held at a vineyard just outside Portland. I arrived precisely on time. Not early, not late. My heels echoed across the stone floor as I walked in. Sharp, deliberate, unhurried. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Morgan froze mid-sentence, her champagne glass half raised. My mother's hand went to her chest. My father's jaw clenched. I walked past them and greeted Vanessa first, hugged her, smiled genuinely, then turned to face the rest of the room like a prosecutor stepping into court. I could feel Morgan approaching before I saw her. Her perfume hit me first, something expensive but thinner than usual. "You look amazing," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Thank you," I replied evenly. "How's the BMW?" Her smile faltered. I had to sell it. Things have been tight." I nodded, polite. A Honda's more practical anyway. Later, I overheard whispers from Cousin Tara and Aunt Martha. The family home was up for sale. Dad lost his job. Mom was on anti-anxiety meds. Morgan's design clients had disappeared. The tide had turned, but no one had told me. I just wasn't useful to them anymore. Cocktail hour melted into dinner, and then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Vanessa's mother gently tapped my shoulder. "Your parents are asking to speak with you. They're in the library. They said it's urgent." Of course it was. I walked in slowly. My father stood near the fireplace, his drink untouched. My mother was perched on the edge of a velvet chair, tissues already balled in her hand. Morgan hovered by the window, arms folded like she was still the favorite daughter, and I was just acting out. "Avery, thank God," my mom began. "We need to talk. As a family." "I'm listening," I said, but didn't sit. Dad gestured to the chair opposite them. I didn't move. He frowned. "This childish behavior has gone on long enough," he snapped. "We lost the house. Your mother's been ill. Morgan's struggling. And you've completely shut us out." "You shut me out years ago," I said quietly. "Christmas just made it official." Morgan rolled her eyes. "Are you really still mad about the car?" "God, Avery, that was months ago." I pulled the leather-bound album from my bag and laid it on the coffee table. "What is this?" Mom asked. "Evidence," I replied. "A record of 34 years of imbalance." I flipped the pages slowly. Side-by-side birthday photos, Morgan's elaborate parties, my sheet cakes, her full college tuition, my student loan bills, trips to Aspen for her, campus jobs for me. "You always said I was the strong one, the independent one, that I didn't need as much." "You didn't," Dad insisted. "You were always fine." "No," I said, voice calm but steady. I was silent. "That's not the same as fine." I reached into my purse again and placed something on the table with a soft plastic clunk. The piggy bank, still bright blue, still hollow. I opened the stopper. Dozens of crisp $2 bills spilled across the table like confetti. Their eyes widened. "One for every week since I left." I saved them. Not out of pettiness, but to remind myself what I was worth to you. Morgan picked one up, turned it over, then looked at me. I never realized how it felt from your side. No, I said, you didn't. And I'm not here to fix that. I'm here to say what I never could before. I paused, breathed. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with family therapy. And boundaries. No more guilt trips, no more emotional games. If you can't accept that, we're done. Silence. Then, to my shock, my mother nodded. Whatever it takes, she whispered. I stood, picked up my purse, left the $2 bills behind. That's yours, I said. A reminder of what happens when you assign different values to your children. Outside the door, Vanessa was waiting. You okay? I smiled at her, genuinely. Actually, yeah. I walked back into the rehearsal dinner, not as the forgotten daughter, but as someone who had finally remembered herself. What came next wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Back in San Francisco, my apartment began to shift from a refuge to a home. The futon was replaced by a proper bed, the windowsills filled with pottery, bowls and vases that still bore my fingerprints. My job title had changed again, Senior Project Manager. The promotion came quietly, but it was the first time I didn't rush to tell anyone back home. I didn't need their validation anymore. The team I led respected me, not because I demanded it, but because I earned it. We finished a major tower renovation 2 weeks ahead of schedule. The final inspection passed without a single revision. My name was on the plaque in the lobby. My work would literally hold the city together. I started to feel solid, too, like all the cracks inside me had been filled with something stronger than before. Elliot, an environmental engineer I'd met through Emma, started joining me for walks after therapy group on Wednesdays. It began as casual conversation, but it grew. He was kind, curious, never intrusive. The first time he offered to carry something for me, a heavy bag from the pottery studio, I said no automatically, then paused. Actually, yeah, that'd be nice. It felt like a bigger milestone than any promotion. Christmas came again, my first in the city. I hosted it myself, Emma, some coworkers, a few friends from pottery class. We crammed into my little apartment with mismatched chairs and cinnamon cider simmering on the stove. Laughter echoed off the walls, and none of it was performative. A new piggy bank sat on the mantel, ceramic this time, shaped like a dove. I'd filled it with crisp bills again, but not out of spite. Each one marked a week of choosing myself. A quiet symbol of healing, a record of freedom. Later that night, Elliot helped me clean up. You've built something beautiful here, he said, handing me a clean plate. Thank you, I replied. And for the first time, I believed it. The past doesn't disappear, it lingers. But so do new traditions, new boundaries, and the quiet power of not needing permission to exist. Some betrayals aren't loud, they're quiet, systemic, wrapped in routines and traditions that leave you starving for validation. If this story moved you, if you've ever rebuilt your life brick by brick, after being overlooked by your own blood, you're not alone. But what happens when the betrayal isn't a gift or a missing invitation, but a hospital bed and no one shows up? Tap subscribe to follow stories like this every week. Next episode, they called my parents from the ER, they never came. My sister just posted a family photo captioned, "Without the drama."